Hey guys, it's Dr. Tanner coming at you here. I am coming at you from our IV suite. I just wanted to remind you, we've got this great speaker coming up. You're going to love it. Super exciting, really cool info, all like hands-on things you could implement into your life today. But I wanted to remind you at the end of the summit that you could link in, and I want you to have access to those bonus materials that these people are providing. It's really valuable information. So don't forget to link into that. I also want to let you know that I am here to help. I am happy to work with you, to help you with your health concerns, to help you with your performance. You can find me and have access to me, Dr. Tanner, at www.run-lab.ca. So that's run-lab.ca. You can link in there. You can find out how to work with me. Enjoy the summit. It's going to be a lot of fun. I want to ask you a question. What if you had a condition your doctor couldn't diagnose? I'm Dr. Jennifer Tanner. I am the host of the Run Well Virtual Summit Series for Runners Health. We have a series of fantastic speakers coming up. I learned a ton while I was recording these, and you are going to love it and learn a ton as well. But really though, what if you had a disease your doctor couldn't diagnose? I see time and time again people crawling into my office. They are so tired. They don't have the energy to, to get the fulfillment and enjoyment out of life. Yeah, they go to their doctor with these problems. They say, hey doc, look, I'm not feeling so hot. I'm a little bit run down. I'm a little bit tired. I'm super stressed out. The doctor runs some blood work. They call them up and say, hey Sally, fantastic news. Your blood work is perfect, squeaky clean, nothing wrong with you. Then why do I feel so tired is the question that I get over and over and over again. Now I focus on runners' health, but these problems, they cross the board. You don't have to be a runner to be tired. Now, when I was training for my first marathon, I didn't want to tell anybody. I was really worried. I was scared that, if I said it out loud that it would be, and I didn't do it, then that failure would be on me. And that was really, really scary. But when I was training, I was kind of running all over town, and people started asking me like, hey, I've been seeing you out and about more, what are you up to? So I just said, you know what, fine, I'm just going to start telling people. So when I told people that I was going to run a marathon, the response was not exactly what I thought it might be. It was more along the lines of, oh, really? Are you sure you want to do that? Maybe you should start smaller. I was a little bit surprised, but you know what? I didn't want to start smaller. I didn't want to do a 5K. I didn't want to do a 10K. I didn't even have the motivation to do a half. My drive was to do the full. And I had this inner drive. I had found that motivating factor that really pushed me beyond those limiting factors. Now, with that, I knew that I could complete. I knew that I could complete the marathon despite what people were saying to me. And one of the reasons that I knew I could complete it was because of my father. Now, my dad and I were super close. As a kid, I'm 10 years younger than my siblings, so it was almost like I was an only child. And growing up, I'd hang out in the garage with my dad. We would like detail the car together. We would like tune up bicycles and repair stuff. Like I was basically the sidekick that was like handing over the tools and fixing all the projects. We would always measure twice, cut once. That was number one rule of thumb working together. And we had a blast. Now, growing up and flash forward 30 years, I get a phone call from my parents. Hey, Jennifer, we need to talk to you. Your father has cancer. Those words are never the words that you want to hear. For anybody who has gone through it, I understand. It's devastating. So for the next better part of a year, I spent driving 3 to 4 hours multiple times a week to go and sit by my dad's side, to be with him. And my friends would say, you know what, that must have been really hard. And you know what, it was hard, but in a way, it was a blessing because we had these countless hours where we had nothing to do but just sit and be with one another. And at this point, he was bedridden. So we would just sit by his side. My brother was really awesome, and he would put up inspirational quotes every day. We would read those, and I would, massage his legs or do exercises, but we would sit and read the paper together. We'd read the stocks, we'd talk about, finances and whatnot. It was a great moment, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. But what became my driving, motivating factor was through this entire process, not once did my father complain. Not once did he say, why me? Poor me. I can't believe all these things that are taking away. I want to live my life. Of course he wanted to live his life, but he didn't complain with the cards that he was dealt. Not once did he complain of the excruciating pain that he was in on a daily factor that the morphine couldn't take care of. Not once did he complain that he was withering away and becoming a skeleton. So I thought, if my dad could lay there in dignity with a positive attitude while dying of cancer, that no pain or discomfort that I could endure during that 42.2K would matter. It'd be so insignificant that I would have no problem pushing through it. And that's what I did. So I ran the Scotiabank Marathon. It was awesome. It was one of the best moments in my life. It felt so rewarding at the finish line. Just to think, anyone who's pushed themselves, anyone who's never run a 5K and managed to do it, someone who's doing a marathon or an ultra, always pushing those limits. And then when you cross that finish line, it just feels so amazing. And it felt amazing until it didn't. I had so much energy until I didn't. And then I hit a crash. I hit a wall. Now, at that point, I was running on empty. I had just had over a year and a half of, this constant driving back and forth, this constant draw on my energy reserves, and then putting the training of the marathon on top of that. Good recipe for burnout, especially if you're not dealing with that emotional aspect that comes hand in hand with that. Now, one of the questions to ask yourself is, what's your return on investment? Now, there was a study, not surprising, that people who had exercise and diet had better results with their goals than people who just implemented one or the other. So in this one particular study, there was people who invested 60 hours of a personal trainer, and they lost 1.5 pounds over, I believe it was 6 weeks this time period. Now that's not a huge return on investment for 6 weeks of personal training one-on-one. Now, with me, my return on investment is one thing that I want to ask yourself at the end of your runs. Do you feel empty at the end of your run, or do you feel like you've just deposited into that energy bank? Are you making withdrawal, or are you making a deposit? This can be a huge indicator as to how your body is dealing with stress. Now, running itself is a stressor. It's an impact sport. It impacts our joints. It impacts our mood, and it can be fantastic for mood support. And I think that's one of the ways that helped me deal with my dad passing, was that I'd go out for a run. I'd be gone for hours. It'd be these endorphins. You'd have time to think and time to process. But at the end of those runs, I was running on empty, and I didn't notice that sign. So we want our running to rejuvenate us. You want to have a clear mind. You want to have tons of energy after that run, a nice workout. You should feel fantastic. And if you're not, then that's a sign that you are suffering from burnout. You are on the verge of burnout, and it will be a lot harder to continue those runs and continue to make those progress. Now, looking at your energy reserves, this is a soccer study, but basically they found, soccer players, they're running, 5-7 miles, something like that during a soccer match. Lots of demands on those energy reserves. So in this study, they found that as your energy levels deplete, the risk of making a bad play increases. 30% of all goals are scored in the last 15 minutes of matches. But that's not surprising when you think of the demands again on that player. Your energy's down, your ability to focus and think and react has depleted. Now think of that, transfer that over into real life. Now think of your work day. If you're going to be tired, when's it going to be? In that latter half, latter third of the day? If you're noticing that your energy is going to have a crash and burn around 2 o'clock, if you're reaching for coffee and muffins around 2 o'clock, that's a huge sign that you are suffering from adrenal fatigue and those burnouts. So when you think of your ability to perform at work, if you're having a crash and burn, how is your ability to respond to those emails, respond to those meetings, respond to the tasks at hand? How is that going to be in comparison as if you had that nice energy bank to be drawing from? Now, we all have roadblocks. Some of the roadblocks like that I find with myself, it's time. I have 3 kids. When am I going to go out and go for a run? When am I going to focus on some me time? And I started incorporating my family with me. So I would hop them onto a bicycle and I'd run beside them on their bikes. We'd go down to the valley, we'd run to and from school, I'd drop them off and keep going. I found obstacles, or I found ways around my roadblocks. So your roadblocks are not, it's not a dead end street. It's a block, and we just need to find the side road to go around it. It's a bump in the road, not a complete stop in the road. If you're in pain, then you need to have a professional check it out to see if it's a normal type of pain or if it's a pain that can definitely be running through. But certainly our energy tends to be a huge roadblock. I'm too tired to do X, Y, and Z. Here's some signs that these roadblocks are starting to impact your physiology and impact your health. And if we don't have our health, we can't focus, if we don't have our health, we can't accomplish these goals, right? Are you accomplishing your goal at the sacrifice of your health? That's not a fantastic sacrifice to be making. I made that sacrifice and it took me well over a year to recover. Was right after I finished that marathon, about 6 weeks later, I hit a wall. I was cranky, I was frustrated, I was yelling at the kids. It wasn't very much fun to be around. I hurt my ankle and it took me over a year and a half to recover. I don't want you to end up in that same position. Watch these symptoms. This is your body's way of saying enough is enough. When the body says no, there's a fantastic book called When the Body Says No, and it's exactly that. Your symptoms are your body's way of saying something is not right and you need to change or I'm going to break down. Caloric restricting and binge eating, having that sense of control over a diet can be a huge impact. Our mood, focus, stress, anxiety starts to creep up, mood disorders, lowered mood, sleep, your hormones. Your hormones can be all over the place. Are you feeling a little bit roller coasty? And where do you store your fat can be a huge sign of what stress hormones are being released. Cortisol in particular is released when we release adrenaline, and that can help. It contributes to abdominal weight gain. So we tend to hold weight around our abdomen to protect those organs from that, from danger. Basically, we go into that fight or flight response, and we don't necessarily need that protection in everyday life. This is why you're so tired. Look at all the things so when you get into that burnout stage, you're starting to creep up there, you're starting to feel tired, this is what we call adrenal fatigue. Your adrenal glands are little tiny organs. They sit on top of your kidneys and they produce adrenaline. This adrenaline is what gets you going places, gets you here, there. It makes you accomplish things. We need adrenaline to be successful. However, when we have this constant draw on this organ says, whew, I am tired, I am going to take a break. And it starts to shut down or starts to function ineffectively, leads to exhaustion, energy loss, starts to have changes in sleep disorders because ideally we should have adrenaline during the day and then or cortisol, and then it's to start to go down at night. But if we're having these zigzaggedy spikes when we're releasing it, we can also have those zigzaggedy spikes in the middle of the night. Those people tend to wake up between 2 and 4 a.m. because they're having a surge of energy in the middle of the night. And that's affecting your melatonin, it's affecting your ability to sleep, it's affecting that ability to repair and recover. That's going to leave you depleted when you wake up in the morning, and it's going to leave you harder to repair from those longer runs and those demands that we're putting on ourselves. And that's what I was finding as well. I was finding that I was waking up every night. What's going on? It's like wide awake. Then people, so when you're in this state, your resources are put into your heart, your lungs, your muscles, so that you can go into that fight or flight response. So you can get out of the situation, you can get out of that burning house, you can survive. But what's left depleted is all those other accessory organs, your digestion, your immune system, your hormones and fertility can be left depleted. We end up having too much inflammation within our system. So I want to ask you, when was the last time you laughed? Seriously though, like it sounds kind of silly, but when you think about laughter, how much do you think children laugh? Let's see, so kids laugh 300 to 500 times a day. Can you even think of whether you have laughed yet today? Adults laugh maybe 15 times, you know, for a little bit more lighthearted. Seriously, people, this is a problem. If we have one life to live and this is the only life, this only shot that we have at it, do you want to look back and think, wow, I got a lot done? Or do you want to think, I had a fantastic time getting a lot done? We can really just make that slight shift in perspective. You know, work is where we spend a lot of our time. It needs to be a fun place to be. And one of the ways that we can do that is laughing. Now, there's actual like laugh groups where you start off and you're like, ha, 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 ha. And then it turns into something funny because you're like, that's such an awkward laugh. That's hilarious. And you start laughing more. But seriously, take yourself a little bit, like have a bit of a light heart. Laugh at yourself. You have a choice. You can laugh or you can cry. But I want you to let your smile change the world. Don't let the world change your smile. There's a lot of negativity floating around in the world, but there is way more love. There's way more positivity. Look at every Disney movie. That's always what prevails. Smiling is infectious. Pay it forward. Hop onto the bus and actually smile at somebody. What are they going to do? Chances are they're going to smile back because it's infectious. And that's one of the infections that you actually want. Now, one other way, like when you were at the office or when you're super stressed out, you have all this stress. It's like piling on top, piling on top, piling on top, piling on top. And we don't have that physical outlet to release that energy. And it just sort of pens up in our head. That makes us way more stressed, makes us way more frustrated, a lot harder to deal with. All the stressors are border for where our threshold becomes lowered and we can snap a lot easier. If we laugh, that can provide a bit of a release, but also an awesome release is shake it off. Shake it off when you were at the office. Just get a crazy phone call. I want you to get up. I want you to dance around that office. I want you to shake. And I want you to laugh at how silly you're going to be. But guaranteed you are going to feel better afterwards. You don't know where to start? Go to a comedy show. Fantastic. Just sit down with a friend and like trade jokes. Fantastic. Or even better, hang out with a small person. Little kids, again, they're like, haha, look at the way the wind's blowing. Ha, everything is hilarious to them. Hang out with kids. The perspective that they have on life is beautiful. And if that rubs off on you, that's a fantastic side effect. Now, living in modern society, we are definitely way overstimulated. So when you look at our nervous system, we have two parallel systems. One is our sympathetic nervous system, and that's that fight or flight response. That's where your resources are, again, being diverted to your heart, your lungs, and your muscles. It's got go, go, go. Your adrenaline's going all over the place. And then you have that parasympathetic nervous system, where it's time to relax, it's time to sleep, it's time to digest, it's time to repair from the day. So by using these electronics, they're super stimulating to our nervous system. Now you might feel relaxed if you're like just laying down, you know, checking out your phone, binging on like Facebook or Netflix or whatnot. It's relaxing in that your muscles are still and you are laying down, which you might not have had the chance yet to do that. But we're not relaxed in the fact that it's a stimulus to your eyes are constantly shifting, it's a stimulus to your nervous system. So if you are laying in bed, flipping through your phone with that super bright light, we need to, one, either get one of those blue screens on there so that the light is not quite as powerful to your nervous system, but ideally just take the electronics completely out of your room. Leave them downstairs, turn off the Wi-Fi, reduce those electromagnetic waves, and really make it time to rest and relax. If you're still having trouble falling asleep, then read a book. If you find that your mind is constantly circling, have like a notepad and you can just write down those things that pop into your mind. But also, like there's a book called The Brain That Changes Itself, and it talks about neuroplasticity, and that if you don't use it, you lose it, basically, with your brain pathways. But also talks about that we tend to fall into the should have, what if, could have patterns, and we create all these huge scenarios within our brain that may have or may never happen. And then we stress and worry about these fictitious scenarios. We are our own worst enemy. We stress and worry about these things that really, if you think 5 years, 10 years down the road, is this going to matter? Most of the time, it doesn't. Progressive relaxation is fantastic before bed, so you can do those really big, deep breaths. So deep breathing is fantastic, and I have my patients do it with each meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. As a reminder to do it, it also sets that nice habit-forming behavior. But also, if you take 5 big breaths before each meal, is going to start shifting you away from that parasympathetic nervous system, away from the sympathetic into the parasympathetic nervous system, and you can actually digest and absorb your food more adequately than if we are scarfing our food down and rushing from place to place. So relax and breathe, and at nighttime, if you're feeling super tense, you can go into progressive relaxation, where you are holding each muscle group for 15 seconds and then relax for 30 seconds. You start at your toes and you work up your legs all the way up to your head, even like raise your eyebrows, clench your jaw. And as you breathe, each moment you will go more and more deeper into a relaxed state. Now, seriously, what does your fridge look like? If you were to take the fridge on the left and the fridge on the right, and you're having somebody who is eating from each of these fridges, how do you expect them to feel? How do you expect your body to feel if you are filling it with food product, packaged foods, processed foods, sugars, versus actual foods, fruits, vegetables, proteins, fats? Your body knows what to do with these things, and it can utilize them. The other fridge is looking at getting run down. So what you eat matters. Is this really our diet? This is one study, and this little fact sheet here kind of blew me away. It's the historical eating patterns. So when you're comparing modern day medicine to like pre-agricultural times, our historical eating patterns now, we were having 10% dairy, 20% cereals, 20% of our diet is refined sugars, 20%. 20% refined oils, and for some people, alcohol can make up 72% of their caloric intake. This is huge. How is your body supposed to function with this? But this little point here, that this is American stat, but the types of foods that we are consuming today would have contributed to little or none of the energy from the pre-agricultural hominin diet. Little to none of the energy. Sugar is huge. Sugar, it gives you energy, but based on like a 2,000 calorie diet, sugar should contribute to 5% of your diet. That would be 25 grams. When you're looking at it, if you're to do spoons, that's 6 teaspoons per day for women or 9 teaspoons a day for men. Yet the average North American, guess what the average is? If 6 is the ideal, the average is 19 and a half. That is like triple the amount of sugar that we should be consuming. And if you consume that on a regular basis, that will easily add up to 66 pounds of additional weight throughout the year. Now, if you are not burning off that sugar, you are going to store it. So contributing to today's diseases, obesity is huge. Heart disease is an epidemic. Diabetes in children, epidemic. We're having those glycemic indexes where we have these spikes and crashes in energy, and that follows that same stress pattern with those adrenal glands, and we're not providing those resources that those adrenal glands really need. Sugar doesn't fill you up, so you always feel hungry. Your mood can be suppressed. The immune system can take a hit for a certain number of hours. I believe the stat was something around the lines of 5 hours post-consumption, your immune system can drop by about 70%. So not surprising why kids always get sick after Halloween, after consuming mass amounts of sugar products. But your performance, not only your running performance can take a hit, but that daily performance. So you're just not going to have that sustainable energy, and your brain functioning is going to be left depleted. And one way you can start your day is with a warm glass of lemon water. Lemon is alkalinizing, is detoxing, your liver loves it. It gets those stomach acid ready and producing. And when you have it warm, if you are stressed out, any little relief on the jobs your body has to do is much appreciated. When you eat your food, your body has to warm it up. If you're eating things already warm, that's your body's kind of like, check, I've already done that. Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next thing. So it reduces that body burden. Rethink those carbs. We tend to think of carbs as like breads, pastas, and crackers. Switch those over. Sweet potato, quinoa, and chia can have fantastic impact, not only on those blood sugars, but on those energy reserves. Sweet potatoes, like look at those, any like vegan, triathlete, any of those endurance people, they are just packing down those sweet potatoes. Snack attack, 2 p.m. This is your challenge, everybody. I want you to have a snack at 2 o'clock every day. So snacks, looking at some protein things, you got your eggs, you got energy balls, coconut yogurt, kefir, make a trail mix with some dark chocolate, bagel with like some hummus or almond butter with some thinly sliced apples and cinnamon, delicious. I like to dip my fruit into almond butter, or looking at like an avocado and tuna dip. There's tons of different options. A lot of these are easy, like grab and go things that you can take with you on the run or leave at your workplace. And your food doesn't have to be boring. We think when we change our diet that we have to like, it's all bland and it's just the same thing every day. But look at these options: lentil soup and spinach, chocolate cherry steel cut oatmeal, mango curried cauliflower, creamy asparagus pea soup, matcha and chia cantaloupe, chickpea sunflower sandwich, butternut squash tacos with tempeh, great prebiotic there. There's a whole world of food just waiting for us to discover it. And I like to think of what we eat as an insurance policy. The better we are at it, the better we feel. And we tend to be creatures of habit and gravitate towards the same foods over and over again. We may be limiting ourselves to maybe only 10 types of foods. So challenge number 2 is when you go to the grocery store, I want you to try a fruit or vegetable that you have never tried before. You may discover something that's just beyond delicious. So what you do and what you eat matters. I know we try to make things really complicated, and taking these simple steps to reduce the burden on our body and improve those energy levels can have profound effects. So just to recap some of those things, you're going to laugh and you're going to get off those electronics. They're too stimulating. 30 days, kick sugar. You can swap that white sugar out for honey, maple syrup, agave, stevia, those natural sugars that have minerals and have antibacterial properties. Choose those warm foods. Start your day with lemon water. And we're going to have one of those healthy snacks around 2 p.m. to keep that energy level a little bit balanced so you can survive, not only survive the latter half of the workday, but thrive. We tend to go into survival mode. Life isn't about just surviving. We need to thrive. So I spent years in practice. I've seen hundreds of these patients crawling into my office. Over the years, I've developed protocols and systems that take people to a state of health that they didn't even know existed. One of the ways I do this is we really utilize functional medicine testing for those objective measures to give us those signs of success. Are we progressing in the direction that we need to be progressing? Now, what does my gut have to do with this? Your gut has everything to do with this. This is what I believe to be one of the gateways to your body. So if you're looking at like your intestinal tract, is this pink tissue here, you've got these nice tight junctions. You want the nice tight junctions for the nutrients to slip through and absorb into your bloodstream. Now, if we are sick, if we're eating things that bother us, if we are stressed, if there's a lot of inflammation, then your intestinal tract tends to look over here. This is what's called leaky gut, where we end up having these big, huge gaps, and molecule sizes can come through in sizes that your body doesn't recognize. It elicits an immune response towards it, and that's where food sensitivities are developed. Autoimmune conditions like arthritis, there's tons of thyroid issues floating around right now. Nutrient absorption, sometimes I have people come into the office and they've got awesome diets, but they just aren't absorbing that. About 40% of the population has a difficulty with absorption and with methylation, which means converting things to useful or to usable properties. But then you also have these like microorganisms can have access that can cross that blood-brain barrier, can start impacting your mood, start impacting your gut health with that like probiotic and bacterial balance that's so important to mood disorders. And some of our speakers are talking about that. Now, in systemic inflammation, inflammation is the base of every chronic disease. And we'll go a little bit deeper into inflammation in some of our other Run Well series. So stay tuned for those ones. Now, food sensitivity testing, like I said, one of the things that I utilize is functional medicine testing. This is just one test that I did on myself, because as you see it here with I have 3 kids, my last baby had really bad cystic baby acne, and it was just driving me crazy. So I did this test on myself. She was nursing. Blueberries, almonds, and pineapples all came up. I removed those foods, and her skin became like a baby's bottom, basically. Super squeaky clean. But functional medicine testing, this is just one example, but we have lots of energy reserve tests to see. How are your adrenal glands functioning? How are you adapting to stress? What might be deficient? Is it a nutrient deficiency that you're suffering from? And once we pinpoint those deficiencies or those problems, again, those roadblocks that we talked about, they just become bumps in the road. They're not an entire block. It's just a bit of a detour that we need to go around. Now, again, back at the beginning of the story, when I was suffering from burnout, I felt like I had lost control. I lost that time that I spent with my family. I was yelling. I wasn't very much fun to be around. I had gained weight. My mood went down. I was hurt. And it wasn't until I had found a practitioner that offered me these tests and that had answers to my questions that I felt like I could be supported. It wasn't until I recognized that what I went through was something that did need to be dealt with. It wasn't until I recognized that I am in control of my own health. We talked about return on investment previously. What investment could be more valuable than your health? Think about that. Think about those people who may have been very successful in life, but then they come across an injury or an illness. And what do all these people say? I would trade all the money in the world if I could have my health back. We need to put value, we need to replace our value back onto our health. And now I want to help support you on that process. So you have that same feeling, you have that same sense of control. I was able to regain my strength. I was able to be a better mom. And like I said, my mission is to bring movement back into medicine. So I am incorporating that with my family. Here's two of my kids that are, well, my son's up there with his soccer, but they're doing triathlons. They're running races. They are active little people. They are out there. So not only am I running again and doing what I love, but I'm doing it with my 6 and 8-year-old. I am both of them here in Toronto, they did the Scotiabank 5K. If those little people under 10 years old can crush a 5K, absolutely we can get you doing that too. So to put your health first, we've got to prioritize. You need to find that purpose. So for me, that purpose was my dad, getting that precious time back with my family. You know, I thank my dad. I thank everything that I went through because it really changed my view on life and it really changed that inner purpose. If we have that, what really motivates you? What are you passionate about? Those are the things that we need to get back to find those drivers. Find those practitioners with answers. If you're not getting the answers, ask more questions or ask somebody else the questions. You might need, is your only option surgery and medicine? You should have more options than just that. Lead by example. So I again thank you, Dad, for leading by example. For he ran that Scotiabank Marathon with his briefcase in hand. He led by example. He led that healthy lifestyle. He led with that positive attitude. He was the teacher. He wanted to change the world, and I am going to help change the world by starting with my family, by providing you guys who are already moving with options. We are going to keep you going. Does this sound good? Does this sound like you have some action steps to start with? And I hope so. Now, we've had this great, amazing conversation about fatigue today, but the reality is of what I gave you, some of these key things you can already do. But what I think that most of us will probably be in agreement is that preventing burnout is going to require a little more than 3 key take-home strategies on this slide. Right? Now, in fact, what probably most of you understand is that you are really, if you're really going to do this, if you're really going to address your fatigue, you're probably going to want to work with a qualified practitioner. You're also going to want to go a little bit deeper. If you were to do just the things that we talked about here, guaranteed you will feel better. We need those little tools to help us find out what exactly is it affecting you and you to the degree. Now, I want to do things a little bit different. When you see me, I'm not going to put you on 25 different supplements and just have you kind of go that way. We need to address those root causes because when you think back again to those roadblocks, once you're in control of your health, those roadblocks again are just little bumps. And I know that for some of you, finding that root cause or like really delving deep, it might feel kind of risky. And this is how I practice. I have an evidence-based practice where I listen to your concerns and will create those individualized protocols just for your needs. Now, circling back again to my story, I was falling apart. And again, it wasn't until I put that recognition and I took a step back and I thought, whoa, I need to deal with myself. And I paid attention to those signs that my body was telling me. Hurting my ankle wasn't just me hurting my ankle. It was me, what I was thinking, what I was doing, what I was eating, that inflammatory load that was building up, and I was just ignoring it until my body shut me down. So again, I want you to develop these resources so you don't get to the point where your body shuts you down, so you get to the point where you can address and deal with things as they come up, because when stress is there, it crushes us and it can be hard to climb out of that ditch. We need the support. Ultimately, in my case, it was a series of very simple steps that helped me climb out of that ditch, but I had specific strategies and I had specific functional testing that helped give me the answers way more than just going to Google. I'd really love to give you that today. And I appreciate that all of you might not be ready for that next step. So if you don't feel like you're ready, head over to my website, www.drjennifertannernd.com. We've got a newsletter section there where you can sign up for that and you can stay in the know. You can pop me questions anytime. But for the next 4 weeks, I want to offer meet and greet, a complimentary 15-minute meet and greet. This can be done in person or in phone for those people that are out of office. And if you don't live in Toronto and we can't do these one-on-one appointments, we have some fabulous online protocols called the Runco. It's designed to take you from a state of burnout to running strong. Because again, one of my missions is to make you stronger inside. It's been so much fun hanging out with you here. I'd love to hang out some more. Now, if you found any of this motivating, if you found any of this to compel you to action, head over to that website, book that meet and greet appointment at either one of the offices, or we'll do that phone consult. And again, as a thank you for being so fabulous and running so well, I want to offer you a complimentary 7-day dietary protocol to get you started. So recipes included, those macros are included, some fantastic wholehearted foods to get you started on the right steps, to design your health, to help stop you from burnout. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the speakers that are coming up on the Run Well Summit series today. Again, you've got my website, drjennifertannernd.com. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, keep running strong, everybody. Fantastic sharing this time with you.